All right, and welcome back to That's Some Cheese, part of the Vendetta Sports Podcast Network. Today is Friday, February 11th, and we finally have our NBA pod with Jarrod Prosser. It's been too long.
Oh, mate, it has been months and months and months overdue, this. Months overdue.
I almost messed up. I forgot to plug my mic in, so that wouldn't have sounded this good. Let's do that. Do I sound better now? I think I sound better.
Sounded the same to me, but it might be different on the recording.
All right. Hey, actually, give me one second. I'll edit this in.
Aren't we glad this isn't live?
That's
the other thing. I didn't realize Tan Show went live.
Yeah.
Like when we had the breaks, like, holy shit, they're like timing these. Why are they timing them? And it wasn't until like at the end of it, I thought, oh fuck, this is live.
Yeah, it is. That was interesting. Made that appearance.
Sorry.
Do you want to talk about it or no?
Oh. You can mention it if you want. I mean, there wasn't a lot of, there was a little bit of NBA chat from Jacko and I, but not much. We spoke about the All-Star teams, really.
Yeah, let's just get right into it. James Harden, Ben Simmons swap. I'm not even going to say anything. I just want to hear what you have to say first.
Well, as you would expect, it's been all over the media here. It's been a weird thing. Public opinion, to a large extent, has turned on Simmons in this country. I think it's more to do with the fact that he didn't play the Olympics than he held out from Philadelphia, though. The Olympic basketball culture is really, really strong over here.
And they have good players.
Sorry?
They have good players. Like, it's not like, he's signing up to play with nobodies.
No, it's not exactly like... I still remember the Olympics in 2008 when Donnie Nelson was coaching China. And he literally, it's Yao Ming and a bunch of scrubs, essentially.
Yeah, it's not
literally
like
at a timeout is just gone, just get a bucket. Like, height of tactics, just throw it to the big bloke and hope. But yes, this trade from a New Jersey perspective, showing my age, from a Brooklyn perspective, it's a really interesting one. Clearly, Harden didn't want to be there. I read yesterday how when the team went to Cleveland, Kyrie lit some incense or something in the locker room to scare away the juju. And Harden just looked at him like he had three heads. Like, what the fuck is this? So clearly, Harden and Kyrie did not quite vibe. That was just a pairing that wasn't going to work. Especially with the fact that he's, quite openly chosen to, you can debate his reasons, but he has openly sabotaged the team. Harden pushed to get to Brooklyn because he thought, well, I can be part of a big three. I can be a major cog in a machine rather than the machine. KD's out. Kyrie plays every other game. Suddenly, Harden is back to what he was in Houston, but he's older and he's got a worse supporting cast. Throwing the fact that Kyrie is just a weird bloke, and I can get why Harden wanted out. And going to Philadelphia, he goes to, if not a city he knows, he goes to a person he knows and trusts in Daryl Morey. So I get all of that. The trade itself, what they've gotten back, Seth Curry is a huge pickup. Patty Mills is a wonderful shooter, but they have really missed Joe Harris. They've missed having shooters on either side. So having Curry on one wing and Mills on the other, you can't overplay a strong or a weak side anymore because there's shooters basically all over the floor except for Simmons. Defensively, he gives them all sorts of versatility that they really didn't have. He'll basically play the Bruce Brown role as that diving center now, except that instead of 6'4", he's 6'11".
Is there another guard in the league that plays like Bruce Brown?
Sorry?
Is there another guard in the league that plays like Bruce Brown?
No, and that's the beauty of Bruce Brown. Like he's such an unusual player.
Yeah.
And that really worked well last year, but he's been figured out a bit more this year. But suddenly, if you make that player 7 inches taller, a ton quicker, and with better skills and better instincts, that's a problem because that Bruce Brown role did work. So you throw a much better, much more talented player into that, it could really, really work. Ultimately, though, now there's no Harden, there's a part-time Kyrie, and there's no KD back until probably March. Brooklyn is sitting right at they're right on the cusp of falling into the play-in if they're not there already. So Simmons had better hit the ground running. And this is a guy who hasn't played since flaming out in, what was it, May, when they lost that series to Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't want to, disparage the apparent mental issues, the emotional issues that he's experienced, because that stuff is serious and it's not taken as seriously as it should be. But just in a physical sense, how is he going to ramp up quickly enough? By the time he gets ramped up, Kyrie's not going to take the vaccine. If he hasn't done it by now, he's not going to. So by the time he gets ramped up and KD is back, we're probably looking at the end of this month. And we could be looking at a 9th seed by then. This could be, in the long run, I get the trade, but in the short term, this could be a fairly problematic thing for Houston. For Brooklyn. I'm kind of surprised that they did it now and not wait until the off season. That says to me that there were some serious issues, more serious than what everybody has imagined in that locker room.
Yeah, that's the thing I can't understand from a Brooklyn perspective. Why do you have to do this now? How many teams in the league would have traded to have your roster? Almost all of them. So
assuming it's healthy.
Yeah, assuming it's healthy, almost every GM in the league wants your team. So the worst case scenario here, you run a Masai Ujiri and you say, okay, we think we have the best team going into the dance. We think we can win one. Isn't that why you traded all those things for Harden in the first place?
It is. But realistically, it is. I mean,
that's why you traded for in the first place.
Yeah, the idea of having 3 tentpole superstars is that if one is out, you've still got 2 tentpole superstars.
Otherwise, why did I give up Jarrett Allen?
Yeah, exactly. Well, they clearly thought that this was going to work out better than what it was.
Are we sure it didn't?
Well, look, they were a shoe size away from making the conference finals, and if they
didn't really have any of them.
Well, that's it. They had Harden hobbles. They had Kyrie out. It was essentially KD and nothing. So, do they?
And the 16 games they played together, they were very, very good.
Mate, it was historically good offense.
Oh yeah,
historically good. Look, the one reason I can think that they've decided to do it now is that Sean Marks saw that locker room and went, "No, this is bullshit. If this gets out, we lose all of our leverage." And they have gotten back 2 of those first-round draft picks. Remember, they sent out, I think, 4 to get him. So to get back 2 of them, considering Harden hasn't performed as well as he did in Houston, that's the only reason I can think that they've decided to do this now, is before Harden gets injured or has another playoff flameout, or before he headbutts Kyrie. It has to be a case of we'll do it now before shit hits the fan. I can't think of another reason.
I really don't see where Brooklyn didn't have the leverage, though. Only because Simmons isn't playing. What version of Simmons are we getting back this year?
That's the mystery. He's obviously going to be fresh.
Yeah.
But he's going to, I would assume anyway, that he's going to be rusty. There'll be a little
rusty
bit
and probably not in shape. Minutes-wise.
In game shape, yeah.
In game shape.
Yeah, I think he's going to look like a professional athlete, but
yes,
game shape is a different thing. Having that ability to gut run, to have that touch and feel, you don't get that by shooting in a gym. You don't get that by playing 3-on-3.
They don't have a lot of margin for error here, though.
And that's my point. But they're a 6 seed. Kyrie's part-time. KD's out. This could be a team that is sitting outside the playoffs with essentially 3 weeks to push themselves beyond the 6th seed. And even then, how many teams come from below the below the 4th seed in a conference to make a final, to win a final.
That's just the part where I just don't see, like, okay, we have Harden. Yes, he could be a problem, but the alternative doesn't seem better.
No, and that's what I'm saying. That there must be something behind the scenes where this was a lot closer to exploding than what us as public, us as media are aware of. There had to have been some sort of tinderbox there that was about to go bang. It's the only reason I can think as to why do it now, because you can get a couple of draft picks back, and if shit really hits the fan, you lose whatever leverage you do have, because it's quite obvious that you need to get rid of Harden.
Especially from the Philadelphia perspective, though. It does feel like that trade for Brooklyn would have been there in the offseason, because they would have never been able to clear that salary to sign him outright.
Quite possibly, but Philly's reason for doing this is really, really simple.
Oh, yeah. That's no question.
Oh, yeah. Like, Embiid is having arguably his best season. And we're spoiled this season. We've got 5 legitimate MVP candidates. It's a remarkable season. But anyway, that's beside the point. Embiid is undoubtedly top 3 in the MVP now. Whether you put Jokic, Giannis ahead of him or whatever order, he's in that 3. He's also made of biscuits. There is every chance that he could go down tomorrow, next week, next month, in April. So you have to strike while the iron's hot. And look, Harden has his flaws, quite clearly. His perimeter defense, particularly when he's not engaged, is invisible. His post defense is really good, but his perimeter defense is awful. He gambles for steals.
But he is a very good fit on a pretty good defensive team.
If you put him in the right spot, like in a switching defense, because he can hold, like, he's one of the few guards in the league that could conceivably play Embiid to a standstill on a couple of possessions in the post. He's just that damn strong. But, what Harden does give you is one of the greatest individual scorers, one-on-one scorers, and one of the greatest shooters to ever play the game.
And Philadelphia did not have that.
No, they didn't. With Simmons out, they did not have that. He rebounds well for a guard. Even though his scoring's down, he still rebounds well. They've really missed Simmons' rebounding. He also does 2 things that they didn't have, which is set up threes and set up big men. Now, he's used to setting up rollers, the Capella types, but or even Westbrook when he screened for him as sort of that faux center. So he's used to doing diving roll men. Embiid doesn't really roll. He's more of a pick and pop guy. So that's going to be interesting to see how the 2 of them adapt. It's also going to be interesting to see how Harden goes as an off-ball shooter, because his history tells us he's not one to just stand in the weak side corner and move to an open spot. He expects to have the ball given to him on the wing. Embiid is a low post dreadnought. You have to give him the ball down low and let him pound some fools. How Harden reacts to that's going to be interesting.
But he does play a lot better when he is engaged.
Oh, absolutely. Defensively, he's far better when he's engaged. Like, there are YouTube, 10, 12, 15-minute YouTube highlight clips of bad Harden defense for a reason. And it's because when he's not engaged, he is god-awful. But he is better than that on the whole. But he needs to be emotionally engaged. So hopefully this will do it. That addition by subtraction. Embiid's not an easy personality to get along with. He will tell you when you've done wrong, but he's also not some weird ass flat earther like Kyrie. And that's got to be the addition by subtraction. Yes, you've got a guy who's a little odd, but he's not down here odd. So I think it's a good trade for both sides, but there are some very, very prominent red flags for both sides.
I just think there's a scenario where Brooklyn plays Philadelphia in the playoffs. Philadelphia beats them, and we're sitting there looking at, like, why did they give him Harden for no reason and not wait for a year? Like that
depends, though. I mean,
I think Philadelphia is way more dangerous today than they were 24 hours ago.
Well, of course, they've got an all-time great player instead of nothing.
Yes.
So, of course they are. This is like, that's just a straight out addition. the addition by subtraction is with, or whether it is an addition or a subtraction, is from Brooklyn's side, where you take out an offensive juggernaut, an individual offensive juggernaut in Harden, and put together an eminently switchable defensive presence who flies in the open court and can set up players, but will not create his own shot. Where does that affect them? I don't think it affects the Nets as much. I don't think it impacts the Nets as much as it does the Sixers when Simmons played for them, simply because you have Kevin Durant, who might be the best individual scorer since Jordan. And you've also got Kyrie, who, for all of his foibles, is a wizard with the basketball.
Yeah, I just feel like Brooklyn should have held out for more. Why not request Maxey? Like, is Daryl Morey really going to sit there and say, well, we could ride this season out with Simmons, or you know what, let's just give up one more piece and have Harden out? I felt like Steph Curry and 2 first-round picks, that wasn't enough.
I don't think that Maxey was ever seriously on the table. Would have been from Brooklyn's perspective for sure. Sean Marks.
Yeah, it should have been from Brooklyn's perspective.
Well, yeah, I dare say he would have. It'd be criminal if Sean Marks didn't ask for Maxey. But remember, he's a second-year player averaging 16, 17 points a game. He's not going to be a part of that trade. The only possible way he could be a part of that trade is if you take out Curry, take out the draft picks, and considering you're getting a 25-year-old and what's Maxey, 21?
Or how about even this? Give me Thibault. Like, I don't feel like Brooklyn got enough for a guy that, Simmons isn't playing.
Yeah, and look, again, you give up Thibault, you've got no perimeter defense, because Maxey's not a great perimeter defender.
I understand why Philadelphia doesn't want to give up that extra stuff.
Yeah.
But I would have told them, listen, sure, you can have Simmons the rest of the year. He's not playing for you. Our guy's playing. So you can give up extra stuff.
But we are going to see Simmons. That's the thing.
Now we are.
I wonder if the fact that Sean Marks was willing to engage tipped off Morey that there was something more going on. Because let's face it, Morey's he's a brilliant general manager. He's awesome. No fool.
He played this perfectly.
Yeah, he did. I saw it on Twitter today somewhere, and I apologize because I can't remember who wrote it, but I thought that's exactly right. And he just wrote, "This is why you don't trade Ben Simmons for De'Aaron Fox." I thought that's exactly right. Exactly right. You hold out for the better deal. Yeah, and he was calling it. He was going to spend 4 years letting Simmons, rot in his expensive condo. So you're absolutely right, Trey.
That's just the part of me. Like, Morey would have kept holding out. He wanted Harden.
Yep.
Let him bend over a little bit more.
If not Harden, then Lillard, or
right.
At the very least, like an SGA or something like that.
But we know he prefers Harden.
Oh, of course, he knows him. It's the devil you know. And remember, Philly aren't looking 5 years down the line. When Embiid's 32, his legs might be done. So they need to win in the next year, 2 years, possibly 3 years. Like, that is their window. I reckon their window is by the time Embiid turns 30. If Embiid is your centerpiece.
I do. So, I just feel like a little bit Sean Marks let them pet their bellies a little bit.
It depends. Like, ever since they started playing together, Simmons and Embiid have, just to, blind Freddie and his deaf dog could see they weren't a seamless fit. So if we get Simmons in Brooklyn now, and he's motivated and he fits better, like his weaknesses aren't as exposed because he's got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and he's got better shooters around him in Curry and Harris and Mills. Maybe we get this all-world Swiss Army knife player that Simmons was projected to be. He might even shoot from 5 feet once or twice, like an actual jump shot.
Yeah,
he might feel that happy and good in himself that he starts shooting elbow jumpers like he did as a rookie. The upside to this for both teams is potentially immense. For Philly, this could be a championship this season. For Brooklyn, this could set them up for the next 6 or 7 years.
I just feel like if the Nets really wanted to do this deal, they could have gotten this deal in the offseason.
Oh, of course. Of course. But that's where I think there was something more in that Brooklyn locker room that the rest of us don't know. And we probably won't know until, Zach Lowe or Brian Windhorse or Shams or something breaks some news on it. So, but there must be something else going on because I honestly thought this was going to be an off-season deal.
Do you think Philadelphia can win the title?
Yes.
I do too.
Yeah. Health permitting, definitely.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that way 24 hours ago.
I agree. I think there'll be a buyout candidate now as well. So, there could be some veteran sharpshooter, like, who's the modern day version of JJ Redick that's going to get bought out. There might be someone like that. So, yeah, I think they're very much in that mix right now.
It's just, it's just disappointing from a Brooklyn perspective, isn't it? Like that's another team you almost created.
Look, they've come away. They've gone from having a 32-year-old All-Star, and frankly, a 32-year-old All-Star who, given his, let's call it lifestyle choices, probably isn't going to be a 38-year-old All-Star or a 36-year-old All-Star. And they've got back a guy who, in his last 3 seasons, was all defense and an All-Star and a triple-double threat. And he fills a positional need if you play him as a center. So I think I don't mind the deal from Brooklyn side. The pitfalls are huge, but they are for Philly as well. It's a very much a risk and reward deal for both sides.
I think the Harden contract perspective part of it should weigh in here more than it did, I guess, because if
the owners are willing to spend.
There's just no way to me that Harden would have turned down that $63 million with the year 5 extension.
Oh, of course. And that was part of the deal.
There's just no way he would have turned that down.
The bigger issue is at the end of the 23 season, what is he like and how much do they spend? Or do they say goodbye? That's a long way down the track. We can look at that then. But that's to me the bigger deal with the money. It's not about the, 70 million or whatever.
I just don't feel like Harden would have actually left other than a sign and trade. He would have wanted that extra big money extension.
I'd expect so. I think it would be his last major deal. But
I just don't see him like, okay, I'll sign for Philly for less. No problem. You don't have to trade me there.
Well, if they're back-to-back champions, he might.
Brooklyn could have won it though.
Yeah, they could have, but we may have seen Harden pick up the Larry O'Brien trophy and hurl it at Kyrie. Literally try and kill him with it. So
I'm fine with that. I got one.
You've got a.
I got a title out of it. He can hurl it all he wants after that.
No, look, I think Harden's always been one who you can tell he wants to enjoy what he does. Like he's not the I'm a well-remunerated foot soldier. I will do my job and I'll deal with it. Like he's not that personality. Neither's Kyrie, frankly. So, yeah, I can kind of get why Harden did want out. But should we move on to one of the other deals?
I want to ask you one more thing. I want to ask you one more thing. Is there a bailing element to this for Harden, where fans look at him like, oh, he just bailed on another team. He's really a quitter.
Yeah, I did see something else on Twitter that I absolutely loved. Harden's going to struggle to get a teammate to introduce him into the Hall of Fame. I literally laughed out loud at that one.
Because he better like Embiid, or otherwise he forces his way out again. We're really looking at him like, whoa, who's the real problem here, buddy?
Yeah. And look, he didn't force his way out of OKC. He held fast on his contract demands and Presti chose to trade him. But yeah, I mean, he has sabotaged the Rockets after 8 years there. Took him, 14 months? 15 months to sabotage the Nets to the point where they had to get rid of him. So, yeah, there is definitely an element of bailing to it. Fight or flight, Harden has shown he would rather he'll lean towards flight.
Because it's not the worst situation in the world to be in come playoff time.
No, especially if look, they're not going to be playing the Knicks in the playoffs. So there's certainly not a series where Kyrie's going to miss all the games.
Yeah.
So there's almost an advantage because they will probably be in the bottom half of the 8 as well. They'll get potentially 4 games a series with Kyrie Irving. But again, he's always struck me as the sort who his mindset and enjoying what he does is just as important as the basketball. And he clearly wasn't enjoying things in Brooklyn Black.
All right. How about the Wizard stuff?
Oh, wow. Busy day for Tommy Shepard.
Yeah.
Really busy day. We all, when they had that red hot start, we all spoke about their depth.
Oh, they had that red hot start. Jackson Law made sure everybody knew, hey, I'm a Wizards guy. Hasn't heard from anyone since, but.
Well, I mean, look, his actual team are doing okay at the moment.
Yeah, his actual team is doing great.
Yeah. Grizzlies for the people who don't know. So, look, as they started to nosedive, that depth kind of worked against them because they didn't have a hierarchy. And there were too many people. Thomas Bryant came back. Rui Hachimura came back. All of a sudden, it was just a very muddled depth chart.
And Beal's actually not even having a good year when he's been out there.
No, he's not. His shooting has been
awful.
It got better in the last month before he was injured, but his shooting was awful. But they made a few deals around the edges. Like we can talk, getting rid of Montrezl Harrell, who may or may not be a locker room cancer, for a good solid point guard in Ish Smith. Nothing more than a backup, but a good solid backup, reliable. And Vernon Carey, yet another big with some sort of potential.
I like that deal for Charlotte a lot.
Well, they need a center desperately.
And I do think him and Rozier were college teammates. They should have some kind of chemistry. Yeah, they should have some kind of chemistry at Louisville.
Okay. Well, hopefully,
yeah.
Hopefully. And look, he is a really good rim runner. I mean, he could feast on some of those passes from LaMelo.
Yeah,
he could get 16 points a game just from dunks. Realistically,
that's the perfect guy. You have a point guard setting him up; he's gonna feast.
Yeah, and look, there's not many more gifted passes than LaMelo Ball. They also traded Aaron Holiday, which pivoting to the Suns a bit, brilliant deal from Phoenix. The one thing they were missing is point guard depth for if/when Chris Paul gets injured in the playoffs. Aaron Holiday is not a world beater, but he can come in a playoff game and give you 12 to 15 solid minutes. That might be enough in those games where Paul is injured or ailing or out or struggling or whatever it is.
How about the butterfly effect on if the Phoenix Suns had drafted Tyrese Halliburton over Jalen Smith?
There's players like that every year, though. There's players like that every year. That's a whole other pod. Like seriously, we could like if we wanted to do our own, I'll issue, say the copyright for the Ringer, but if we wanted to do our own redraftables, we could find 2 or 3 players like that in every draft over the last 40 years if we really did. They're a big deal, though. We've sort of buried the lead here, but we talked about them getting yet another big in Vernon Carey. They've gotten a big name, big, in Kristaps Porzingis. And, they've also gotten back a couple of seconds. And all it cost them was Spencer Dinwiddie, who has, surprisingly to me, you and I were both pretty big on him at the start of the season going to Washington, but he's been god-awful. And
that's almost an understatement.
Yeah, he's been terrible. And I'm really shocked and kind of sad because I really liked Dinwiddie. And they also got Davis Bertans, a one-dimensional player who has lost that one dimension. And
I couldn't. I was watching the ESPN trade deadline special. I could not believe that they were hammering, the Wizards for this trade, saying how could you give up Dinwiddie and Porzingis? He's never available. I was like, what do you mean? Have you seen these guys play?
Look, I do get that the availability. Look, Bertans is rarely injured. Dinwiddie, he's had a couple of major injuries, but when he doesn't have a major injury, he's generally right to play. And Porzingis is out as we speak. So I kind of get that. But, I mean, on a talent play, and you're spending 80 millions on Bertans, a shooter who's forgotten how to shoot. Dinwiddie, all he's done is detract from Bradley Beal. And now you've gotten Porzingis, who, look, I get the talent play, but it does muddle that center rotation yet again. Thomas Bryant's back, and he's a handy player. But Thomas Bryant coming back from that knee injury has pushed Daniel Gafford down the depth chart. And Daniel Gafford, he's undersized, but he's a fucking pogo stick. He doesn't walk, he bounds. And like, he was a really, really good defensive center for them. They've got Isaiah Todd, the rookie, on a two-way. They've got all these guys. You can play Hachimura or we both, you and I both love Hachimama. But you can play him or Avdia as small ball centers. They're both 6'9", and built. You can play them as small ball centers. So they've gotten rid of Harrell, which cleared up the center rotation a bit, and then only gone and gotten a 7'3" center. So I get it as a talent play, but as a fit, I don't know. I think it's just a case of getting a couple of regrettable contracts off the books.
Yeah.
Maybe turn Porzingis into something at the end of the season, and they've gotten a couple of second-round picks from Dallas for their trouble. I do not see the fit with Porzingis in Washington.
That's how I view it. It's like, you're telling me I can get rid of the Dinwiddie and Bertans contract? Okay, we'll do it. But we'll figure out whatever Porzingis is. Like, we'll get something better.
That's exactly it. You can trade Porzingis off name.
Absolutely.
You're not trading Bertans for something, off his name. You're not trading Dinwiddie off name. So to get rid of those contracts, potentially get something for Porzingis and get a couple of seconds.
I love it.
Look, it's an asset play, but it's a really good asset play.
And especially they're in a tricky spot with Beal. They can't be stuck with bad contracts.
This leads to an interesting question. Yeah, let's say that it's not Porzingis that they get rid of at the end of the season. They decide to move on from Thomas Bryant, or they trade Daniel Gafford. They move one of the other centers. Is Porzingis at whatever is his best at this point of his, rather injury-addled career? Is he enough for Beal to say, "Yep, I want him. I'm back"?
Probably not.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, Beal's been proven exceedingly loyal, but everyone has their point. Everyone has that point where they go, "No, I need to branch out. I need to go somewhere where I can win."
Which is how Lillard should feel with Portland.
Yeah, I agree. And we will get to Portland. Believe me, we'll get to Portland. It's an interesting question. I tend to agree. I don't think it's enough for Beal to say, "Yep, give me another 4 years of this." The big thing for Beal to stay will be whether guys like Avdia, Kispert, Hachimura, whether they show themselves to be genuinely good NBA starters or looking like they can get there. Whether Daniel Gafford can be that defensive linchpin of a defense.
I do think a positive for Washington is Beal has been so loyal to the franchise. He will work with them on a sign and trade. He won't just bail on them for nothing.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's wired that way, that he won't leave in the lurch. And look, he's made his money. So, he's as much. Well, having said that, he's 28, I think, 29.
Yeah,
he's got one big contract left in him, so he'll still want to maximize that as much as he can. But I think he'll try and do the right thing as well. So does all of this make the Wizards better?
Like this year? Does it matter if they're better this year?
Well, I mean, they're still thereabouts for a playoff spot.
They don't have Beal though the rest of the year either.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, no, you're right. That's well, maybe it is a showcase for Porzingis. Knowing that Beal is going to be out, let's bring in Porzingis, let him take 25 shots.
See what we got.
Go for 27, 10, and he probably won't get 10 rebounds. He never gets 10 rebounds. But 27 points, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks a game. And
Isn't it a shame he never gets 10 rebounds?
Oh, he doesn't. I mean, the guy's got leg. Like, see this pen?
Yeah.
It's wider than Porzingis's legs. Like the guy's got no lower body strength. So as much as he's tall, like he just gets pushed out of position too easily. Just switching to the other side of that trade though, Dinwiddie, yeah, do you think he's an insurance play for Brunson?
What else would he be for?
Yeah, I can't see another. I mean, I can't see another reason that they do it outside of, well, we just want Porzingis gone. And I do get the whole reason for that too. I mean, Porzingis proved to be a poor fit with Luka.
I hate it from Dallas's perspective.
Oh, look, I completely get why. Like, Luka needs the ball more. Jason Kidd was trying to make the offense more egalitarian, and that was great for KP, but it wasn't great for the team. They have improved of late after that awful start, but Luka is at his best with, a genuine rim runner. They've got that in Dwight Powell. Kleber can play as that stretchy big if they need him to, I did find it interesting that they got off Porzingis' money and within like hours re-signed Dorian Finney-Smith to an extension. So I was like, that's how much Porzingis has fallen, that you can only get Dinwiddie and Bertans, and even to do that, you've got to send picks as compensation. And they've cleared him so that they can sign Dorian Finney-Smith. Like that's how far Porzingis
doesn't seem to make sense.
Well, I mean, it's he's perhaps not seen as, he's not the bright shining unicorn that he once was.
But like those two guys, like, are they even contributors for Dallas?
Well, look, maybe there's something in the air in Texas and Bertans rediscovers the jump shot he had as a Spur. I don't know. Look, Dinwiddie's still a good player. I think there's still a good player in there. I just don't think he meshed with Beal. But having said that, he's going from one dominant, ball dominant big guard to another ball dominant big guard.
And I kind of like Jalen Brunson.
Well, and I think Brunson's better than Dinwiddie.
Yep.
Undoubtedly better than Dinwiddie. So it's not even a contest. Let's pivot on to your boys.
Oh, boy.
Your Celtics. I'm going to let you take the lead here. I'll go through the trades that they've done. So they got rid of Dennis Schroeder and Ennis, almost called him Ennis Cantor, Ennis Freedom, who was waived subsequently by the Rockets, to bring back the little-used Daniel Tice. And you also got rid of Romeo Langford and perpetual misfit Josh Richardson, for Derek White from San Antonio. Trey, floor is yours.
The one positive is I've been hammering this point for almost since Gordon Hayward left. They don't have anybody that passes, and it's a big problem. And it's a lot of, oh, Tatum, it's my turn. Jaylen Brown, okay, it's your turn. And I do think they're way better than what their record has shown, because those guys, I mean, a lot of teams would love to have those guys. There's no reason why they should be as bad as they are. They don't have anybody that can pass.
The sum of the parts doesn't quite work, does it?
But I do think there's a chance this Derek White kid fits with Tatum a lot better than a Josh Richardson did, who, yeah, he's pretty good on defense, but I mean, he's a shaky shooter. I know his shooting numbers have been okay, but he's a shaky shooter. He doesn't really space the floor that well. He's not a playmaker, just not really a fit with those guys. So I do like the Derek White aspect in that perspective.
Yeah, and look, I mean, you say this kid White. I think we all underestimate the fact that he's 28 years old now. He's been around a while, and he wasn't old.
This is the first year of his rookie extension, so
yeah, that's the thing. He did come into the league as like a 23-year-old or something like that. Yeah, look, I think it's a good deal. Like he's a good but not great shooter. He's a good but not great ball mover. He is a good defender.
I do think he can defend.
Yeah, he and Smart in the backcourt. And then you throw in Brown and Tatum, who are good defenders, Brown especially, in their own right. Like that is a really formidable defensive foursome. And then whether you play Horford's Guile or Time Lord's leaping ability and basket protection. Oh no, I do too. Now that he's gotten a little bit more professional in his approach, we're seeing what he can do. But defensively, that's a pretty good five. Like that's a really good five to lean on. And the other side of it is he does come from that. And look, maybe I'm being a little bit historical here, but White comes from that San Antonio school of basketball.
There's no question. I've been reading reports. Udoka wanted him bad.
Yeah. Well, remember Udoka, he's an ex-Spurs player. He's an ex-Spurs assistant. He would know Derek White really well. I think he was the development coach in San Antonio when White came on board across his first few years. So he would know Derek White really, really well.
Great contract too.
Yeah, very, very good contract. He's vastly undervalued on the money he's on. I don't mind that trade. And look, Josh Richardson, I think we've mentioned it before on a pod that every time since every team he's moved to since Miami, we've gone, great move. Josh Richardson, really versatile, good secondary, tertiary scorer, good defender, moves the ball, and he's flamed out. So, we talk about the Spurs school of basketball. Maybe he is someone that really only works in Miami's school of basketball.
It was very clear he was not a good fit with Tatum and Brown.
And he wasn't a good fit in Dallas, and he wasn't a good fit in Philly. No, mate, maybe it's just that he happened to have a really good couple of years on some uncharacteristically poor Heat teams, and he's just not that good.
I don't mind them taking the chance on Richardson because they gave up like Moses Brown to do so. But
yeah, exactly. That's Moses Brown's a dime a dozen. That's you're going to find plenty of replacements for him. And the biggest positive for you, Trey, no more Romeo Langford.
Oh, I couldn't stand him. Could not stand him.
You watch him start shooting 43% from three now that he's in San Antonio.
No chance. No chance. No chance. No chance. I'll never forget his rookie year. They were asking him, NBA trade deadline's coming up. Have you talked to any of the guys about it? And he's like, oh man, I forgot we could get traded.
I mean, look, I know going from college to pros and all that, but you'd think you would have, maybe played 2K once or twice and traded.
Oh, he's totally out of it at all times.
Look, sometimes that's not a bad thing for a shooter. They're not worried about their last shot.
No, he for sure is not.
Remember my last shot.
Yeah.
Look, I actually think it's pretty good business. And look, Tice will be an underrated addition as well. He had his best years as a Celtic.
I wish they would have gotten more for Schroeder.
Sorry?
I wish they would have gotten more for Schroeder.
God, mate. Don't get greedy. It's Dennis Schroeder you're talking about.
I know.
You're not going to get much for him. Schroeder on an expiring. You're not going to get a whole lot for him.
I don't love Tice. He's fine.
No, he is. He's perfectly fine. Look, he was the starting center when he was there, but he won't be now. It'll remain. Well, I would expect it would remain Time Lord. But Horford, I love Al Horford, but he is calcifying before our eyes. It's really a shame to see. Tice is a guy who can play as a 4 in a big lineup, a 5 in a small. He'll stretch the floor. He'll move the ball. He'll play acceptable defense. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't he doesn't offer a lot, but he doesn't take anything away either.
He's not the guy I want guarding Embiid, though.
Yeah, that's a bit of a high bar, though. It's like saying, you know what? We don't have a Giannis stopper. No one has a Giannis stopper.
But if I'm getting a backup center, isn't that what I want? I need somebody that's going to guard Embiid.
Yeah, but how many players are going to be able to stop a 7'2", 270, 280-pound ballerina?
Let's say they had gotten
be a liability when they do anything else on the court.
Let's say they had gotten.
There's
Robin
not many
Lopez.
of those players. There's not many of those guys, Trey. It's it's not the 1980s where you have like 7 versions of Greg Kite sitting on your bench. So it's the game is smaller. That's what makes Embiid what he is. He's so much bigger and more powerful than most centers these days. That's what makes Jokic what he is. He's got ridiculous skills and vision, but he's also a mountain of a man.
Your guy, Derek Favors. That's a guy I can put in the post there and kind of maybe get in Embiid's head a little bit. Tice, he's just going to get bullied. I know it's coming.
watch for Favors to get bought out. I have this sneaking suspicion he could be a buyout guy. And, we spoke about it before, Philadelphia is the buyout market. They've just gotten rid of Andre Drummond.
Oh boy, don't do that to me.
No, if he gets bought out, I've just got a sneaking suspicion he'll end up as a Sixer.
But I can't have that. I can't bring in Tice and be like, oh well, here's Favors or here's Robin Lopez, and I know he's gonna.
That's another really good buyout candidate because he's just sitting there on the bench at the moment watching these young bigs,
right?
Spending his days at Disney World, and I mean, I'm sure Robin Lopez loves Disney World, but he's still probably the best center on that Magic roster.
You could have sold me on that on one of those guys instead of Tice.
No, that's a good call. I hadn't thought about that until you mentioned the name. But if he does get bought out, he's a better candidate than Derek Favors. He's more mobile, gives you far more offense. I don't think he's younger. I think he's actually older. But Favors' body is older. Like his body is beat. Like he's just full of aches and pains these days.
I just don't know what Tice gives.
It's a really good call. You still got that, that god awful ugly hook that never ever misses. But I think Robin Lopez is a really good call. I think he's a great call. And if he ends up in Boston, he strikes me as that. I think he could be a real cult hero as a Celtic.
Yeah, I do wish they would have gotten one more shooter. I think that's like almost their missing piece. They don't have enough pure shooting on the roster to be a serious contender. I just don't think they're gonna. They need the white piece is great. I think it helps them for next year, but I do think they need one more dude.
Yeah, they do. But look, I don't mind their trades. I think they've done good business, Boston. Yes, I think that's all right.
Let me ask you this: it does seem like Brad Stevens is a little bit nicer than Danny Ainge. Like he doesn't have to throw in that 2028 pick swap, but he did anyway because he's a little bit too nice of a guy.
Well, look, he's still, as much as he's made his name as a coach, he's still making his name as a GM.
Yeah.
So he's probably got to maybe undo a little bit of that Ainge stigma of that driving super hard for the deal.
Yeah, it feels like okay, we'll give you the 2028 pick swap. Like what? Nobody else is giving up pick swaps. Why are you doing that?
Well, look, the other thing is Stevens walked away from, in the prime of his coaching career. What's to say in 5 years he's not going to go, you know what, screw this, I've made my money. I'm going to go live on a farm. Someone else can deal with the fact that we're going to get a worse pick in 2028.
Yeah.
So there's that element too. He's shown he's going to walk away in his prime. So couple of smaller deals to hit on that happened on deadline day. Goran Dragic from Toronto to the Spurs. So yet another guard on the Spurs.
He's getting bought out. I saw. Dragic.
Sorry.
Goran Dragic. He's getting bought out.
Yeah. Oh, he's been bought out already.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't see the fit there. But yeah, look, I don't mind the fit of Thad Young on Toronto. They want to play with basically Fred VanVleet and a bunch of 6'8", 6'9" guys. Thad Young is 6'8". He was a 3-4 when he came into the league. These days he's a 4-5, probably more of a 5. And he's more stout. He's stronger than any of those other guys that they play at Anunoby or Siakam or Barnes or any of those. So he is the guy that can guard those dreadnought centers.
Do we take Toronto seriously though? Like, are they a team that you could see them going on an Atlanta type run? Because I don't.
I'm genuinely not sure. I still haven't quite figured them out. I wasn't sure how the fit would go with Siakam coming back in, but playing him as the starting 5, it's worked really, really well. Siakam's
something you yelled at me about, by the way.
What?
I said Siakam, play him at center.
Well, I wasn't sure he had it in him.
You yelled at me quite a bit for that one.
Yeah, I wasn't sure he had it in him. I didn't think he was. I didn't think he was stout enough, but it's worked really well. And credit to Nick Nurse, he's created some absolutely gorgeous offensive sets that just have this whirring of motion that all these really fast athletic.
Oh, there's no doubt he's smart.
Oh, he's a very good coach. Yeah, we're not exactly breaking news with that one, but it also means that there's less minutes for Precious Achua, who has been fucking terrible this season. I was shocked when the Heat traded him. Absolutely
So was I.
shocked. I thought, no, they will find a way to keep him. Riley will insist that he stays. I know you're getting Kyle Lowry, but you're also getting 1,000-year-old Kyle Lowry. I thought that was a steal for Ujiri. And look, maybe big guys take longer as we the generally accepted wisdom with these things. But man, Achua has not been good this season. Backing up Bam, it essentially means this is his rookie season, realistically, as far as minutes on the floor. But God, he hasn't shown anything. He really hasn't. So that leads to, and you can't play Chris Boucher too many minutes. He's just too slight. He gets battered. So Siakam is really the option, but that's where I think Thad Young will help, because now they genuinely do have a guy who can hold up against bigger bodies. As much as Young's 6'8", he's built like a house and he's got old man strength. He can genuinely hold up against bigger bodies.
How about the Spurs, though? They give up White, they give up Thad Young, and I know they're not great, but that doesn't seem like a Spurs team that is close.
Oh no, look. I've said it for a while now. They're a good team in search of a superstar. They're a team of second options in search of a superstar. Murray's going to play his first All-Star game, and that's great. I had him on the fringes when I wrote about my All-Star team, and I was so close to putting him in. I really was. I think he's a really deserving All-Star. But Thad Young wasn't playing. They've got all these young guards. I mean, Lonnie Walker has been chomping at the bit to get more minutes, and he's really shown something this season. Primo is still a baby. He is. I think he's still the youngest player in the league, but he's shown some genuine flashes. He's been.
They got hammered for picking him.
Well, they did. I thought he was too high. I really liked his potential, but I thought he's still so far away. I would have thought maybe 20 to 22, that range. But he has shown a bit. Certainly not consistently, but the kid's he's an infant. You throw in him, you throw in Lonnie Walker, Derek White is in the way. So if you can get stuff back, why not?
My question is, how good is Derek White? Chickster loves him, but how good is he?
Look, he's not going to be as good for Boston as he was for San Antonio, simply because San Antonio needed more from him. Yeah, it's.
Are we sure that's true though? In terms of the Celtics needing more from White, they really need a guy that can pass the ball.
Yeah, but they needed White to be essentially their second best offensive player.
That's true.
You're not going to
shooting wise. They need White too, though. They absolutely need White to hit his shots.
But they don't need shot creation, individual shot creation. They need him to be the link in the chain.
Yes.
To facilitate those around him, and maybe to stop Marcus Smart taking so many threes. But from a San Antonio perspective, Murray is an average shooter, and they really had nobody else who could create off the bounce. Walker again shows flashes. Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, they show flashes, but the only other person that could get his shot off the bounce was Derek White in that team, and he doesn't have to do that nearly as much in Boston. I think his fit will be great in Boston, but you're going to get a slightly different version than what you saw in San Antonio.
I like the trade. It's just a matter of how good is he? I want to know how good he is. We've seen a lot of these Spurs guys. They're not so good when they're not in the Spurs.
Yeah, look, he's not a world beater, but I like Derek White. I think he's a really good, solid player. He doesn't really have any discernible weaknesses. He's not an A+ in anything, but he's not a C in anything either. He's a good, solid player.
Are you surprised the Lakers didn't do anything?
Yeah, John Wall's still a rocket. I don't know what they could have done. I mean, the only tradable piece they had was really Westbrook if you're going to go for another star. So I don't know. Maybe they could have moved Davis to the 4 and picked up Porzingis. I don't know.
Would you have done Westbrook for Wall and Eric Gordon somehow? Maybe a Westbrook Horton Tucker for Wall and Eric Gordon.
Is Horton Tucker worth it? He hasn't shown much this year. He got paid.
Well, you'd probably have to add more picks in from the Lakers' perspective.
You might, yeah, you might. And they haven't really got a lot. But that was always going to be the thing that was going to hamstring them. The players that they have that other teams would want, there's perhaps Horton Tucker, but the rest of them they really need. Malik Monk's been superb this season.
Awesome.
But, they need him. They desperately need Malik Monk. Getting rid of him to bring in somebody else like Malik Monk, well, why do that? You've already got Malik Monk. So the lack of picks to trade because they got rid of everything for...
I'm surprised they didn't just end up with a Terrence Ross somehow, somebody like that.
Yeah, look, that's not a bad call. Someone like you mentioned Eric Gordon, he'd be perfect on the Lakers. I'm actually really surprised that Gordon didn't get traded. He might be another buyout candidate.
Oh,
and
boy.
if he's a buyout candidate, every playoff team should be in for him.
Oh boy,
a guy who can shoot from not just deep, but really, really deep.
Oh, he changes the outlook for somebody big time.
Oh, he does. He creates off the bounce. He might only be 6'3", but we're talking about Harden being able to defend bigger because he's just so big through the chest and the shoulders and hips. Gordon is a wonderful defender of bigger players and always has been because he's built like a fucking outhouse. He's a monster. He's only 6'3", but he's built like a house. So if he does get bought out, then there's every playoff team would be getting onto his agent. That'd be mad.
Why would the Rockets even want Schroeder though? Isn't he going to get bought out?
Sorry, who would they? Oh, Schroeder.
Yeah, he's going to end the year with Houston. That doesn't make sense.
They do need a point guard, admittedly. I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. has been playing the 1, and talented player and all that, but he's a 1 in the same way that Zach LaVine was a 1 in Minnesota.
But if you're Schroeder,
you want to end the year
with them?
His ball handling. LaVine was a terrible point guard. Kevin Porter Jr. is a terrible point guard. He might have I think he does have a future as a scoring wing, but they do need someone, an adult NBA player to take the ball and direct a little bit of traffic. And Schroeder has his warts, but he can do that.
It's just the Houston Rockets are bad.
Why does and by design?
Why does Schroeder want to end the year with that? He should get bought out too.
Yeah, look, he might, but remember, he's someone who's looking to play his way into a longer term, if not more lucrative contract. So I think that if he can come in and he can show that he can kind of coalesce all this young talent that's around him, people will sit there and go, that's a good point guard. That's a solid, that's a really good backup point guard. We're going to pay him, backup point guard rates, 8, 9 million, 10 million a year. So I think that might be his aim. And he kind of needs it to be. He's going to have the ball in Houston, unlike what he did in Boston, unlike what he did in LA, and to a degree, OKC as well. He hasn't really had the ball in his hands consistently since he was in Atlanta.
Yeah. And what other trades you want to go over?
Well, we should probably hit up that 4-way. The Kings picked up this time, picked up Dante DiVincenzo. The Bucks picked up Serge Ibaka from the Clippers. The Clippers picked up the walking afterthoughts that are Rodney Hood and Shemi Ojale. And Detroit take a bit of a talent play on the man our generation's Sam Bowie, Marvin Bagley.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have much here. I just think the Detroit part of it is the most interesting to me.
Oh, absolutely.
Is Bagley going to start to become anything? Because, I mean, it's a great gamble for Detroit.
and they need a 4. They
Yeah.
definitely need a 4. And, like Bagley can't really defend on the perimeter, but he's worse at defending the rim. He's starting to stretch his game a little bit shooting wise, but Isaiah Stewart, he's not going to demand the ball down low. He's a garbage man offensively. He's a scrappy player. He's Montrezl Harrell-ish.
I do like when he fought LeBron.
My God, like seriously, like the Detroit Lions should have given him all the money and said, "You are our running back." Like he was just carrying dudes.
Yeah,
it was wonderful. Outside of the fact that it was LeBron, just the fact that he kept going and more people jumping on him, going, "No!" And he's just walking through like they're not.
That alone has made that draft pick worth it.
Is that man? That was so much fun. But back to basketball. Yeah, Stewart is not the sort who's going to have a play run for him. He's going to crash the boards. He's going to scrap. Bagley has more silk than that. You can run some plays for him. You can run him in a pick and roll or a pick and pop. So he is that offensive big man. And look, I'm not saying he's nearly as good as Christian Wood, but he is the offensive big man that they haven't had since Christian Wood fled to Houston. So I get the talent play, and it's cost them nothing really. It's cost them some picks. They've got.
How much do you think Ibaka helps the Bucks?
If he's healthy, a lot. But that is the biggest asterisk that I can possibly draw.
I just don't know what they're getting.
Well, you look at Milwaukee last season; they played these huge front lines, or these huge lineups, really. You'd play Brook Lopez, you'd play Giannis, you'd play Bobby Portis, you'd play Middleton at 2, and Drew Holiday, who, we talked about Eric Gordon and James Harden as stout guards. Like Drew Holiday, 6'5" and bigger than any of those guys. So you had size and strength at every position. This season, they're playing Giannis at center, Portis at center. Portis was the 3 in those lineups last season. So they've gotten really, really small without Brook Lopez there. So Ibaka, he can play. If he's healthy, he can give a reasonable facsimile of what Brook Lopez does. He'll be big. He'll get some rebounds. He'll block some shots, and he'll hit some threes. I think it's a good play in that it covers Lopez if he doesn't come back, and it gives them insurance if Lopez comes back and either gets injured again or isn't right. So I don't mind it. And for the fact, for costing him, Hood, who was not playing, if anything, he was blocking Jordan Nwora. And Ogilvy, again, I really like the Ogilvy signing as a risk reward. That there was no risk to it, and the reward was you get a younger version of PJ Tucker. It didn't work out. Fine, you get rid of him. Now you've got a potential replacement for Lopez. I think it's fine for the Bucks. I've got no problem with it at all.
They're being slept on somehow, aren't they?
The Bucks, yeah, absolutely. To me, they're actually I still think they're the favorite in the East.
I don't think a lot of people view them that way, though.
I don't think a lot of people do either, but for me, they are still the favorite in the East. Even if they don't get, Lopez back and Ibaka ages before our eyes, like that last Indiana Jones movie, or they've still got so much quality, and people forget they are the reigning champions. They're a wonderful basketball team, and they've got a 6'11" Greek/Nigerian cheat code.
There does feel like
he hung up 50 in a closeout game. Like, how many people have that sort of player on their roster? Not many, if any.
It does feel like, Drew Holiday did stuff James Harden, and Embiid got dominated by Giannis. How did we not see this coming? Sort of thing.
People are forgetting, and I think Milwaukee are very, very happy with that. The interesting one is DiVincenzo. Before the Halliburton trade happened, I was actually in the middle of writing a piece about the Kings, and was it possible, like, what are the machinations of how to build around Fox, Halliburton, and Davion Mitchell, and how to build around this 3-point guard lineup. So of course, halfway through that piece, they get rid of Halliburton and scraps the piece. So, fuck you, Sacramento. But getting rid of Hield as well. It's not the first nor the last time I'll say that. But getting rid of Hield as well, it thins out the point guard rotation and makes it a little bit more ordered, but it does mean they're missing it too. DiVincenzo, again, people forget this because he was injured in the first round last year, so he wasn't part of that playoff run, but he was developing into a really good complementary player. Very, very athletic, good defender, moves the ball reasonably well and shoots the ball reasonably well. He's redundant in Milwaukee because of the emergence of Pat Connaughton from being just a deep reserve to being a genuine rotation piece. Grayson Allen, when he's not kicking and punching people, has taken that spot. And I mentioned Nawara. He's another one that has taken part of that role of the big athletic shooting wing. So he's really redundant. Sacramento have already, put in for him before. So it makes sense for, to try and move him while they can. If he comes back and he's healthy and he keeps on that progression that he was doing, great pickup. To get rid of Marvin Bagley and get in a 20, what's DiVincenzo, 23, I think? A 23-year-old who could be a starting two guard for the next 8 years. That's a monstrous win.
I know people are crushing the Kings for trading Halliburton, and I know it's batshit insane, but is there a scenario where this can work for them? Because Sabonis is awesome,
mate. They got the best player in the deal.
right?
Halliburton might be the best long term, but as we sit here today, it's 12:30 in the morning here in Victoria on the 12th of February 2022.
The Kings have an all-star player.
Yeah, they've got a two-time all-star. They got the best player in the deal. So Indiana's playing on the potential of Halliburton, but how many times have we seen potential not quite live up to what it was? Domo is a literal all-star, and he's playing just as well this season as he has the last two when he was named an all-star. If anything, there might be like a slight drop off, but he's in the ballpark. This gives them a genuine playmaking big who can score, who can rebound. My worry is the fit. If they traded Fox instead of Halliburton, I wouldn't have this concern, because Halliburton is so malleable. Like, he can play in any situation. Fox isn't a great shooter, needs a pick and roll partner, importantly. Domo is not that. He's a pick and pop guy. He's a playmaker. They still have a pick and roll going. Yeah, and they still have
that's the part I'm concerned about. Yeah, it almost feels like, we signed Fox to an extension. We're stuck. We have to trade Halliburton because we signed Fox to an extension. This is classic Kings.
But to go Fox and then 2 years later Halliburton and then go Davion Mitchell.
Right.
Like, I don't best player available, but you got to draft. You got to make sure your pieces mesh. And they've drafted three guys who only one of them could shoot, and they've gotten rid of the one who could shoot. Now they still have Rashawn Holmes, who is that pick and roll partner, and he's got nice chemistry with Fox. He had better chemistry with Halliburton, and I think there's probably more to do with Halliburton than Holmes. But Holmes and Sabonis, I don't think necessarily mesh either.
No.
The idea should be to move Harrison Barnes back to the 4 somehow. But you can't play Sabonis at center because you get no rim protection. You can't play, if you play Barnes, Sabonis, and Holmes, you're too slow at your 3 and 4 spots defensively, and you don't get enough shooting from the 4 spot with Sabonis. So I'm not really sure of the fit. Sacramento, but Monty McNair loves Sabonis, and he's been very public about that for quite a while. So I do get the trade as far as they've got the best player and they'll try and make it work, reshuffle the roster around him. But as it stands, the roster doesn't fit. They did get the best player, but the fit concerns me.
Are you surprised the Pacers held on to Hield, that they didn't flip him in another deal?
Yeah, a little bit. But maybe that money just was too much to move on, because he's drastically overpaid, horridly overpaid. It does bring us back to whether the Lakers should have just traded for him in the offseason. Might have solved a whole bunch of teams. But
that's the kind of guy I think you find a trade for. Like, I'll use the Celtics for an example. You're telling me they couldn't have done a Horford and a pick for Hield?
Oh, look, there's surely something that could be done there. You know, Hield, he seems like a prickly personality, and he plays absolutely zero defense. But my God, can he shoot the ball?
Right.
Like, yeah, he's not quite the shooter that, say, Patty Mills and Seth Curry are in Brooklyn, and he's also on a lot more money than those two.
He fits every roster.
He does. Shooters fit every roster. 6'4" to 6'6" shooters, they fit every roster. You can find a spot for them. So maybe they just swallow the money. Indiana just swallow the money and say, he's our shooter off the bench. We've got our set guard rotation now of Brogdon, Halliburton, Duarte, and Hield. It seems crowded, but I don't know, maybe that's the thinking. Maybe they play with 3 guards. The fact that all of those guards are quite big. Now, Hield's the shortest of them at 6'4", I believe. Because TJ Warren, I mean, he may or may not exist at this point.
Buyout. Maybe, he's a free agent coming up.
Yeah, but do his legs work? So maybe this is a case of if they decide to play 3 guards. Rick Carlisle has always preferred to play with shooters. He loves spacing. So, Turner spaces the floor. He does like to have a rim runner, which they don't really have at this point. But he does, he loves spacing more than anything, and he always has. So maybe this is a case of they are going to play a bit smaller, knowing that they've got an elite shot blocker in Miles Turner to cover up all these mistakes. Sort of like a version of what Utah do with Gobert. Play shooters everywhere, knowing that you've got this octopus play sitting in the paint. So they might be looking to run their version of what Utah do.
Speaking of your Jazz, no more Joe Ingles, which obviously doesn't really impact it anyway because he's out for the year regardless. But
all one out, into my mouth. Look, it's really sad that he went down with the knee. I was expecting that he would get traded anyway, but obviously going out injured means he wasn't going to get traded for as much. Him and a draft pick might have drawn a Jeremy Grant. As it is, he is, which would have been perfect for you. Would have been perfect for a bunch of teams. But that's another one. Like Jeremy Grant not getting traded was a surprise. But as it is, Joe Ingles with one working leg has drawn Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Juancho Hernan-Gomez. Look, a play on a talented young player who was stagnating in New Orleans in Alexander Walker, he might turn into something he might not. For the fact that you've got a 34-year-old on one leg who is an expiring contract, you may as well take a flyer. At the start of the season when we did our previews, I spoke glowingly about the Rudy Gay signing, thinking he could be the small ball 5 that Utah have been searching for. Hasn't worked. He just, he's as old as the hills, but...
Do you miss Niang?
Yeah. I love the minivan. He's great. I genuinely love the minivan. Like, I love the fact that he's basically a cube with a head who can shoot, but I love, he's just a really infectious personality.
I knew it.
He just seems to be like he would be an awesome hang. Like in the off season, he'd be the sort of bloke who'd just say, "Let's have a beer. Let's sneak out. Let's grab a drink." Yeah, he just seems like a really good bloke. And look, going back to the trade, Juancho, I think Juancho has got so much more than he has shown in the NBA. I think he's a genuine talent. For whatever reason, it hasn't really worked since Denver. But 6'10", can shoot the ball, plays stout defense, a typical Spanish big man in that he passes really well. For whatever reason, it just hasn't quite worked. So I think this is another attempt from the Jazz to find their small ball center for the playoffs. It hasn't worked with Rudy Gay, so they've had to play a lot of Whiteside for better or worse. So I think Hernan Gomez is another attempt at that, that missing link, that small ball 5 for the Jazz.
Speaking of, I guess, that sort of trade that flipped into many parts, McCollum, Pelicans.
Rebuild is on. So, two of those players, Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Juancho, were part of that trade. The other one, Josh Hart, really underrated player, Josh Hart.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he's genuinely good. He's
somebody the Lakers could use right now.
Well, he sort of reminds me of a version of Derek White. Like, he's that sort of guy who, on a good team, he's probably your fourth, maybe fifth best option, but he plays good defense. He moves the ball well. He'll hit his open shots. He doesn't make mistakes. He takes nothing away from you, and he gives you a little bit of everything. Like, he's a perfect third guard, basically.
I'm not sure I like this risk for New Orleans.
It all depends on Zion, really, doesn't it?
Bingo.
Ingram's playing superbly. Valanciunas is doing Valanciunas things, but if Zion comes back, this might work. If Zion doesn't come back, they're a 10th seed. So
Bingo.
Everything rests on those, big and increasingly bigger shoulders. So, I do get it. I get why they've done it. This, like, CJ is the best guard they've had since Prime Holiday, but yeah, and really they haven't given up a lot. Alexander Walker had dropped out of the rotation. Juancho wasn't in the rotation. Hart is good, but he is what he is. Like I said, a good third guard on a good team. CJ is, he shot something like 39 or 41% on threes in the last 8 years. That's, and on really good volume. Like, he is an elite scorer.
Do we think Griffin has done enough after the Davis contract to put a good enough team around Zion?
Look, Zion is potentially that transcendent that I almost think the roster around him doesn't matter as much. If Zion comes back fit and firing and healthy and the player that we all imagine he could be, essentially if a rhino learned how to fly, then the roster almost doesn't matter. You just need enough complementary pieces. If Zion comes back and he's merely very good, then they're a playoff team, but they're probably not much more than that. I don't think they're a home court in the first round type of team. I think they're good without being very good. So it really depends on what we get with Zion, and who the hell knows, Trey? Like, at this point, who knows?
I don't.
No, none of us do. None of us do. So yeah, it's
on the Portland side, though. I just don't buy this argument. Oh, we're just retooling to build around Dame again. I can't buy that. I'm sorry.
No,
this is shot.
Look, what's the interim GM's name? Joe Cronin. I appreciate the guts that he has had to do this. How many interim GMs would sit there and trade away Covington, Powell, and McCollum whilst they're still an interim? So he's obviously been empowered by ownership, but to still have the balls to make those calls and to hit the go button on those deals. He's obviously got some gumption, this bloke. And
I didn't like the Powell deals.
Look, it was purely an asset dump, really. I mean, Powell's on 80 million over the next 4 years. Roko's 31. So this is purely an asset dump. Look, nothing more. They get a flyer on I've gone blank on the first round pick the Clippers had that they threw in. I've completely gone blank. That's terrible of me.
I know they got Winslow, which doesn't mean anything.
Well, I mean, it'll mean something until he gets hurt again. No, I've gone completely blank on the Clippers first, like the player the young player the Clips threw in. But yeah, look, it was essentially a salary dump. It was, hey, LA, take these guys. They're going to help you win. Give us some expiring contracts back. Paul Allen isn't there anymore. They're not spending the way they used to. They are, that is one of the smaller markets in the league, and it's been kind of hidden by the fact that Paul Allen was exceedingly.
Keon Johnson.
That's it. Thank you, Keon Johnson.
Yep.
Oh wow, that's so bad of me. Yeah, it's been the fact that they are such a small market has been has been hidden by Paul Allen being stupidly rich and being willing to spend, being a genuine basketball nut. Now that he's not there, the money's not being spent as much as it used to be. So they're not going to spend like they were for a 45-win team, which is essentially what they were going to be in its makeup. So I still think there could be. I agree. I don't buy that this is a retooling around Dame. I think this is the beginning of, okay, we're selling off this, we're selling off that. In the off season, give us your best offer for zero.
Yeah.
And for Nurkic, I think Nurkic will go as well.
I believe Nurkic is already an impending free agent, isn't he?
Oh, you're right. He is. Yeah. So they'll probably just renounce him and let him go.
Yeah.
Interesting little pickup with that CJ trade, though. I know he's injured at the moment, but Larry Nance, I think he's a really, really good pickup. I think he's a very good pickup for
and good contract.
Great contract. Very underrated player. We talked about Josh Hart being that that player, and Derek White being those players who give you bits of everything without taking something away. Nance is the 3/4 version of that. He can shoot a little bit. He rebounds well. He can dribble it. He can pass.
He can jump
the open three. He can block some shots. He's that sort of guy who is the perfect forward off the bench. He can play the 3, the 4, maybe the 5 in certain matchups. Doesn't make mistakes. Just gives you bits of everything. He's a good, safe, reliable player. So that was a nice little piece of business from Griffin to get Larry Nance back as well.
We're at what, an hour and 45 or something like that? What else we have?
I know, and it still feels like we're only halfway through these trades. So many of the
man.
No, look, I actually think we've covered just about everything from the last 4 or 5 days. It feels like a miracle. So we spoke about some buyout candidates. So probably I'll throw in a little teaser here. I am going to put out an article together in the next day or two about some buyout candidates. So
love that.
Keep an eye on that. Vendettasports.com. So we've spoken about Eric Gordon. We spoke about Favors. Spoke about Robin Lopez. Are there any other buyout candidates you think might be there?
Ooh. We know Dragic already hit the market. Yep. Wow. I'm not sure. Those were the names that came to my head. When I said those.
They're the main ones. Definitely. There's going to be a few out there, so that'll be, they don't necessarily swing the title, but they're the sort of guys that can maybe swing a game in a playoff. So they're always interesting to keep an eye out for those.
Now that the deadline's over, give me your conference finals and then NBA finals picks.
Oh,
so we'll end with that.
I'm still going to say the Suns out of the West.
Okay.
It does. Yeah, no, it does depend on. I mean, Chris Paul will have his annual hamstring injury. Phoenix just need to hope it happens sooner rather than later, so they can get him back and healthy in time. If it happens in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals, all bets are off. But all things being equal, I'll say Phoenix out of the West. And like I said before, Trey, I still think Milwaukee are the title favourites. So I think they'll be pushed a lot more by particular teams in the East. And the East for the first time in 20 years is genuinely frightening at the top end. But I still think Milwaukee come out on top.
I'm going to go Milwaukee beats Philadelphia conference finals. I'm going to go Golden State beats Phoenix conference finals. Milwaukee beats Golden State finals.
Yeah, I think you're probably right with the losing conference final, with the other conference finals as well. I think that's our final four: Golden State, Phoenix, Milwaukee, and the Sixers. But I think Phoenix. I think it's a Phoenix-Milwaukee repeat.
I just can't get the sight out of my head of Jrue Holiday. He came back to bite Philadelphia. He locked down Harden. Giannis won the Embiid battle. Dunzo. Series over.
Well, we spoke about Chris Paul having his annual injury. Embiid, Harden, they don't necessarily have good health records late in the season either. And Embiid has carried, well, both of them really have carried an awfully big load obviously Harden for the Nets prior to this trade, but they've both carried an awfully big load this season. There will be a lot of stress on those bodies, and that might manifest itself in some random movement in the second round that ends up with someone missing 2 weeks.
I do think there is a chance Durant could just go insane mode, and Brooklyn could figure this out. Brooklyn could figure this out. Durant goes nuts, and they do win it.
Then look, maybe Kyrie becomes a grown-up.
Yeah,
I don't know. If Brooklyn can put their team together and Simmons is back to even 90% of what we know of Ben Simmons, like I said at the start, Trey, this lineup that's around him in Brooklyn hide his weaknesses really, really well. So,
and the sad truth is, if they just have Seth Curry last year, and Harden was a shell of himself, and Irving wasn't even out there, if they just have Seth Curry on their team last year, they probably do win it.
It's the reason they signed Patty Mills. Harris went cold, and he was their only off-ball shooter.
Harris makes shots. They win last year.
Yeah, exactly. And he was smothered and he was out of form. A second guy, thus the Mills signing, mitigates that. Now they've got a third guy in Curry. So that, even when Kyrie's not playing home games, you're still putting a center of the universe player in Durant, an all defense distributing player who can play center in Simmons. And this is the thing. Remember, he was drafted as a power forward. It was Brett Brown that turned him into a point guard. So really, and he played his college ball at LSU as a 4. So him coming back, I've said it for a long time. I think he needs to be a playmaking 4, not a point guard. But you throw him back in as a big man, and then you throw Harris, Curry, and Mills to space the floor. And
this Cam Thomas is a little interesting that they have.
Yeah, a bit trick or treat at this stage, but he's a rookie. But he's a rookie, you expect that. Can you imagine a 5-out offense with those 3 shooters and Durant and Ben Simmons at the top of the key with Joel Embiid on him late in the game 7?
How about your thoughts on Claxton too?
I'm surprised he hasn't had the impact he has. I love Claxton. I think he's a really versatile defensive player. So Simmons essentially.
I was a little surprised that I was reading things after they brought in Drummond, they tried to trade Claxton. I thought that would have been a mistake.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to come from Claxton. He's so versatile defensively, and you need to have more options. If there's one thing that Simmons isn't, is a shot blocker. So he's got short arms. He's not a shot blocker. Claxton is. Claxton can give you the same sort of versatility on the perimeter with more rim protection. I mean, he obviously lacks in so many more areas that Simmons excels in, but he does give you something different. He's the only genuine, and maybe the rookie Sharp, but they're the only real genuine shot blockers on the team. Blake Griffin isn't blocking anyone. Short arms and can't jump over a folded piece of paper anymore. So yeah, they need to keep Claxton. But going back to that, 4 players out, Simmons at the top, playing center, point center, and he's got Embiid on him. Now, he's going to burn Embiid for speed. So how long does it take for Embiid to collar him and say, shoot your free throws? Does he do it at half court? Does he wait until he gets to the 3-point line?
It's going to be must-watch TV.
Yeah, it is. And that's the sort of thing we could see maybe in a second round or maybe even a conference finals if someone upsets Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So I'm so looking forward to please, NBA gods, basketball gods, give us Philly and Brooklyn in the playoffs, please.
Okay. One thing before we wrap this up.
Yes.
Celtics ceiling for this year. Best case scenario. Is there a reason for me to watch the rest of the year?
Some sort of seismic earthquake takes out most of the eastern states.
And injuries happen. Injuries happen.
So suddenly you're looking at pretty much, leave some of the southeastern states. So you're pretty much looking at Orlando, Miami, and Boston as you contenders.
I do think they can beat Miami. I
think they can too. I think there's enough there. That's about the best I can do, mate. I think they're a 5th seed at best.
Okay.
Sorry. I can't give you too much joy there.
I do think they match up better with Philly than like a Brooklyn. I would be terrified of. They would get killed.
Yeah, look, I do like the defensive potential of that first 5 or 6 players now. I still don't think
that's why I feel like they're better against the Philly.
But as soon as you go past that top 5 or 6, they're not all that good defensively. So, depth doesn't matter as much in the playoffs.
They opened up like 5 roster spots.
Yeah. Now, look, I don't think there's enough depth there. There's a makings of a really good roster, but I don't buy Boston's depth. I think, early second quarter, late first quarter, early second quarter, late third quarter, early fourth. I think they're going to get blown away, and it's going to be too hard for those main guys to cover that gaming.
Next year will be the window. They need one more horse. They need one more horse.
Oh, they do, absolutely. But every team's looking to improve. I still think Boston, like I said, at best, 5th seed. So I'd still have Milwaukee, I'd have Brooklyn, I'd have Philly, I'd have Miami all ahead of them. If Atlanta can possibly get it together, because this has been the season from hell for them, they're another side that could come shooting back up the standings as well. So, I still think Boston are a ways away from being a genuine contender.
Tatum needs to get on the phone. Come on, Beal. We're friends. Remember those St. Louis days?
Now that would change things.
Yes.
But who would you give up for him?
Horford and the bag of picks.
Yeah, because Washington need another center.
I'm just saying to match the money. They're
just going to play like 5 centers. Horford at the point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all right, Jarrod, this was fun.
I don't see it with Boston, I'm afraid, Trey. Sorry to burst your bubble, mate.
It's okay. It's okay. I don't see much of a bubble either.
A sad note to end on.
Yeah. As always, it's always a blast with you, Jarrod.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, I guess we'll do one before the playoffs, maybe. I don't know.
So, we will. We'll get some playoff previews in. Talk about how Boston are going to get swept.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, my invite's been revoked suddenly. Great.
All right, that's Jarrod Prosser. Make sure to follow him. Hey _it's _JP. I'm gonna say it again just because he loves it so much. Hey _it's _JP. That's our guy Jarrod Prosser. Make sure to follow me as well, Trey Dalbert. Our show handles That's Some Cheese, and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time. Okay.